Hello, everybody. I am so sorry for the technical difficulties on today. The enemy didn't want us to get this out. For those of you, if you're able to join in, please let me know if you hear me clear. What's going on? Hey, everybody. Is that better? On Facebook, Instagram is still clear. And YouTube, are you able to hear me good? What's going on? I see you, my brother. I see you. Hey, everybody. I am so sorry. Let me apologize for the technical difficulties that we were experiencing. That's how I know this conversation is going to be good because they don't, the enemy don't want us to talk about tough love. So I had already began the conversation by asking the question, would you turn your child in if you knew your child committed a crime? So that's my first question. I really, please come on in. Hey everybody, I see you guys. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. So let's the conversation of tough love. The first statement, tough love, you have to have no regrets, right? So would you turn your child in if you knew your child committed a crime? So my response to that is it depends on the crime. So if my child calls me and say, "Mom, I cheated on my taxes," I probably wouldn't turn him in or them in. I would say to them, "Hey, you cheated on your taxes. If you get caught, you just have to deal with the consequences." You understand? So I probably wouldn't turn him in for that. But if my child called and says, "Mom, I murdered somebody," or "I robbed somebody, I wasn't trying to," whatever his reasons or their reasons are, I would probably first scold them. "Why would you do that?" But I would support my child and I will go to the police station with my child. And I would pretty much turn my baby in. I'm sorry, you were bold enough to commit the crime. It's tough and it's hard to say, and I know things like this is hard to say anyway because it's different when you're actually in the situation versus you just saying, "Oh, if I was that person, I'd do this," because I know we all do that. We say what we would do and what we wouldn't do when we're looking at somebody else within the situation. But if I'm my child comes to me and shares with me, "Mom, I murdered somebody," or "I committed this particular crime," and whatever, I will go with my child to the police station and turn them in. Well, make them confess, turn themselves in. I feel like the consequences would be a little better. But I need to know. I would like to know. What are your thoughts on that? Okay. Um, um, Thank you all again for joining me on today. We did experience some technical difficulties, but I appreciate you all for being there. I see you guys, and I'm working off of two different devices. Um, so I can see comments on both. Let me see here. Okay. So the second question, does the crime even matter? Like, is there a crime for you that you would, I mean, you may have some people who say, "I don't care what my child has done, I would never turn him in." Is that you? Let me see. I'm trying to see how can I. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Another question. Is there a particular crime that you would not turn your child in? Like I stated, if my child, I honestly, the only crime I can see me not turning my child in is probably some kind of like if my child say he cheated on his taxes or something, because 9 times out of 10 The IRS is gonna find that error, and they're gonna deal with that person or with my child themselves, right? Okay, so Krista, you said nah, it depends on the crime. I totally agree. So for those of you who have joined in, the question is, would you turn your child in if you knew your child created a crime? Second question, does the crime matter? Is there a particular crime that you would turn your child in? Is there one you wouldn't turn them in? Or would you be hardcore? There's nothing that my child will do. I will never turn them in. I don't know. What about if it's a loved one? Anybody else? Your brother, your sister? Okay. So, another question, what if it was molestation or domestic violence? If you knew your child was beating on their spouse, would you turn your child in? That's kind of deep, right? Because that means your child is endangering somebody else intentionally, and you're sitting back watching it. Or even if you are not sure of it, or if it's brought to your attention, would you deal with your child on it? Would you confront your child? Would you say, hey, son, daughter, I noticed what you're doing to your spouse. Is everything okay? Like, what's going on? Like, would you insert yourself? Would you intervene if you saw your child committing uh, a crime? Okay, you said no, it depends on the crime. And I get it. So I wanted to just talk about it a little bit, because we often say what we would or what we wouldn't do. And I was this whole Gabby situation, and it's really sad, what happened to Gabby and everything. And I'm just curious, like, what are the signs? Do we even know the signs? Do anybody know the signs of abuse? Or what are some of the what are some of the signs? What are some of the red flags? Are there red flags for you versus for the young women, for the young ladies versus older women? Okay. So we have a comment. Crystal, she says, for that, I will confront first. With the domestic violence, molestation, I would turn him or her in. Absolutely. So I would have to totally 100% agree with you. And anybody that knows Lanasia, for my family, I would definitely intervene. It's part of that honesty that I'm always talking about, that transparent, being honest with my family members. And even if it's going to hurt people's feelings, if I see that my child is abusing someone, whether it be their child or their spouse or whatever, I would definitely say something. I would say something to my child first, and then depending on the severity of the situation, I would definitely uh, turn my child in. Either I would say I would try my best to convince my child to turn himself or herself in versus having to go tell. But I would definitely say, hey, if you don't go and tell it, I'm gonna have to go in. So, oh, Minister Xavier, how are you? You said, based on raising my children with the experience I have with my child, they would probably turn themselves in, face God, my knowing they would face God, myself, and my teachings. Okay, so you believe in the upbringing of your child, that you saying that you depend on your child, your child will turn themselves in automatically. Okay, okay, okay. Corey, thank you for joining in. He says, yes, I will step up and say something. Okay, absolutely. So for um with the intervention, uh how can I mean I have had an experience where somebody really close to me I saw was getting abused, right? Growing up as a child. And it's a very difficult thing to watch or to experience, right? Because you want to be there. You don't want to seem like, as a child, that tattletale. But it's very difficult to live through it and to go through it. These are just my opinions. So would you be afraid of your child not loving you, or the repercussions of your child not loving or trusting you or hating you? I know hate is a strong word. Would you worry about that? Or will that play a part? Would you care? you know, uh, because I think that part is where the tough love comes in, right? So, um, absolutely. So, yes, I believe that that's where the tough love come in. You said, I trust in the training a child in the way that they should go, and when they are older, they will not depart. Okay, I get that. So let me ask you this question, Minister Xavier. Without without the spirituality in it. I mean, because I understand again that we cannot, you can't say for certain what you would do if you're not actually in that situation. It's like sometimes you hear people having conversations and they talk about things, what they would or what they wouldn't do, versus, well, not versus, but they would just say, if I was in that situation. It's easier when you standing on the outside looking in. That's what I'm saying. It's easier on the outside looking in. But honestly, right now, if your child called you and said that they did this and this and that, and they're not willing to turn themselves in, they're not willing to follow the rules or the guidelines and the commandments that God has set forth in the Word of God. So they're not willing to do that. They saying to you, Daddy, I'm not going to turn myself in. No, I'm not going to do that. Are you strong enough to do it? Are you strong enough to turn your own child in, knowing that your child committed this crime? That's a direct question to you, Minister Xavier. So I'll give you a second to reply to that, to respond to that. Um, Another thing, some of the red flags. So let's talk about some of the red flags that can potentially be shown in someone who's being abused or someone who is abusive, because that's two different things, right? When you're being abused, from my experience, you become standoffish, right? You no longer have a desire to do the things that you love doing. You know, I'm just throwing something out there. Like, um, I say to my kids, because they always ask, do you like my girlfriend or do you like my boyfriend? That's not for me to like. This is just Lanasia's opinion. Your spouse is not for me to per se like. So what I tell my children is, I can determine whether I care for a person being in your life when I see your behavior. If you're my child, if my son start misbehaving or doing things out of characteristic, or he's just not himself, now I'm questioning, where is this coming from? Like, you've never used to do this before, why are you doing it now? Or, you used to do this. Like, for instance, let's just say your son used to love to go play basketball. Then all of a sudden now your son no longer wants to play basketball. Or your child come home and they always angry, or they find negativity in every situation. They are never happy. You know what I mean? So when I see, okay, something changed in you, child, something has changed. You're not doing this no more. You're not doing that. It makes me look at the people around. Because, of course, as parents, we tend to look at our children's surroundings, right? Who are you hanging around? That's why we ask, who you been hanging around? Who you been talking to? Why you acting like this? Why you sound down? Where's all your energy? Why you tired all the time? What you do? You know what I mean? We ask those questions because we see a change in our children. Or and that goes for family members. If I see a change in my sister or in my brother, you're not doing the things that you used to love to do, you no longer care about yourself, or you have that self-pity. You ever see people that's always just they just always pitiful and sad and mad and got something going on, and you start questioning, because if this is not the characteristic of that person, it will cause you to wonder what's going on, right? So that's one of the red flags for me that I always say to my kid. Now, it can be the opposite. That's how we look at our children or our loved one and say, oh, you so happy. Oh my God. Now I'm thinking, why are you so happy? Oh, you got somebody in your life. This person is having a positive effect on you. So when someone has a positive effect, you're going to bring off positive energy. Would you all agree? I mean, as a parent, would you all agree? Can you not tell when your child is hanging around somebody that's um, not good for their life or someone that's enhancing? My brother once asked me a question. He said sometimes he has to ask himself this, and he asked me, when you're looking at people that's in your life, they're going to either do three things. They're going to either enhance your life, they're going to either stagnate your life, or they will bring you down. They will take your level down. You ever be so focused and then all of a sudden your focus is down and it's leaving and it's leaving and it's leaving. And so now, we call it that inner circle. You start looking at your inner circle, who's around you, who are you talking to daily, what effect are other people having on you, right? So if this person is either going to enhance your life, stagnate you, where you just nothing happening. You just feel like every day it's the same exact things, okay? Or they'll either be bringing you down. So we have another. If you, Corey says, if you don't turn him or her in, you condone it. Then you're condoning their crime. I totally agree, Corey. I feel I do agree with that. If I don't turn you in, I know you done murdered somebody, and then let's just say it's self-defense, and they say, no, I'm not turning myself in, it was self-defense. Well, you still need to turn yourself in because you killed somebody. You understand? Okay. Minister Xavier responded, you guys. He said, first, hey, Xavier. First, being in that situation that a child I raised would commit a crime of great punishment, they would do what I did. That was, I would not tell my parent. That's what. So you saying that you wouldn't even tell your parent? Okay. Well, the question is, would you turn them in if you knew that your child committed this crime? You know for a fact. Let's just say your child come in the house, they got blood all over them, and they try to hide it. They take it downstairs, put it in the washing machine, and try to clean themselves up or whatever. And you see evidence of it, and you question them, and so you kind of know. I mean, because get it, we all know our children, right? I know mine. I know all three and a half of them. I know my kids, and I will never say what my child won't do. Now that I learned a lesson, because I tell my children all the time, I'm your advocate, right? I'm supposed to defend you. I'm gonna protect you to the best of my ability. But if I don't trust you, if I think you lying to me, how can I protect you? You ain't gonna send me in there, have me argue. My son, my daughter did not do this. They're not no, they would never do this. And then you pull out all of this evidence that my child did it. So I will never say what nobody will or won't do, because we are all capable of all kinds of things. You just never know. Okay. You never know what decisions you will make at the last minute when your back is up against the wall and you're in a situation. So play that by ear. But I can speak right now and say that if I knew for a fact that my child committed a crime, I would definitely, I would turn them in. I will motivate them. I will talk to them, encourage them, let them know, hey, I love you and I support you. And there is absolutely nothing in this world. And I make sure my children know there is nothing in this world that you will do ever that will make me stop loving you. You will have my love forever. I may not like the things that you do or say. I may not agree with the things you do or say, but I will never stop loving you. So I will love you from the jailhouse. I'll come bring you some brownies and, bring you some stuff. But if you make a conscious decision to commit a crime and I find out about it and you have not already turned yourself in, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to make sure you know that you're loved. and then I'm gonna help you walk on down to the police station. If you so decide to run, I will go to the police station and I will tell the police, look, my son is a good kid. He made a mistake, or my daughter, she made a mistake. But here are the places that he or she hangs out. Here is her number. Da da da. I'm gonna help them find you, and so that you can stand trial, because you never know. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't think negatively, but I won't condone, and I would expect the same for me. If my child come home and discover that mommy committed something, I don't expect my child to lie for me. I just don't. Okay. So Brother Xavier says, scenario of a parent being a friend rather than a parent, because I will not accept foolishness of that extent from experience. So again, they will either hide it or they made a mistake, and I will find a way to try and reduce the punishment, that he or she learns a tough lesson on how to redeem themselves. Gotcha. Finally, these posts only allow limited text. I got you. I got you. I appreciate you taking the time to respond to my question, because I wanted to know the answer. So thank you for that. So yes, we have another statement. We can't ask that others be held accountable for things, but not wait. We can't ask that others be held accountable for things, but not our children. That's what I'm saying. Thank you, Sabrina, for that statement, because that's what drives me crazy when you ever overhear those conversations, and when people are discussing current events, and they are talking about, what they would and wouldn't do, and they boldly, I would never do that. Oh, let that happen to me. I would do this and this and that. And then being the main one, something happens, and then they do the total opposite of what they boasting about what they would or wouldn't do, right? But how can we expect others to do right, or to be right, make right decisions, or encourage them? You need to go turn yourself in, but I'm not willing. So, here go another question. If an incident happened, like we hear about these hit and runs where you driving and you accidentally hit somebody, nobody else is around, would you stay and help that person, or would you drive off like nobody's here? You know what I'm saying? Those type of things will determine within your heart. That's a personal thing, where your heart is, right? um uh so let's go back to these relationships. So we talked about the child changing their behavior uh within themselves. you know we notice change within our children, and that kind of is a tell sign that somebody they're hanging around, or you know maybe not good for their life. How, as parents, we say that person don't mean you no good, sweetheart. You need to stay away from him. He is not good for you. you know you ever heard those statements? But what are some other red flags? Have any of you experienced that, uh having a loved one or a child that's in an abusive relationship, or some signs? So we talked about signs of abusive relationship, how you can the child can become standoffish, or they change their ways, their eating habits change, their likes and their dislikes change. But what about if your child is the abuser? Your child is angry. They have this anger issue, going on. Every time a situation happens, they jump hard, or they automatically irritated, and they blast out and cuss you out, and you be thinking to yourself, what is wrong with that child? You know, what about that? Would you be able to turn your child in, or intervene? Are you bold enough to tell your child that, hey, I know what you're doing, and turn that child in for that? I know it's kind of the same, but really, if you think about it, we know our children. So that's a question for that. But what are some other signs that you can tell when someone is being abused? Because a lot of times within molestations, and I know this from personal experience, within molestations, you're scared to tell other people. You may even been threatened. In my case, I was threatened. So I lived out of fear that my abuser was going to kill the most important people in my life if I said something. You understand? So I lived through this situation for a few years, scared that if I say something to anybody, people in my life were going to die. And I believed it, you know? So I sometimes wonder, like, I think about it now saying, what are some of the things I could have did to give my parents or my grandmother or somebody some signs that things this was happening to me? But I was so scared, you just don't know, depending on the age. So I just want to know, what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you know of any signs? Do you know, have you seen it with your eyes? Someone being abused, or you know of somebody that's abused and you may have asked them the question? People always ask me, how am I able to talk about the things that I experienced in my life? And simply right now, when I learned that I had that, the fear I was living in, because of course you have to conquer that fear. And that's what happened. Once that fear was conquered and I was able to bring it out in the open and share what was happening, you have this overwhelming of safety and feel good about yourself. But it's very hard to even get to that point. You know what I mean? But overall, some of the I try to think, like, what could I have done to bring certain things to the light? So I want to know, like, have you all ever experienced that? So, um, yeah, that that molestation thing is really tough, because you often think about the people who can't, and if we still stand with our child, they scared to speak up. So as a parent, I always tell other parents to certain little things to watch out for, certain things that I didn't allow my daughters to do, that I was able to do, or I did, because it's family. You don't really double check family, right? So like little girls, we don't sit on boys' laps between their legs. Now you sit on daddy lap, you sit on one leg and to the side, but you don't sit directly in between a man's lap. Did anybody other parent, mom, tell them that? Don't you sit on no man lap. And then when men pick me up, pick up my children or my daughters, I made sure that my girls didn't straddle their open their legs so that they can be picked up. No, you know, I would teach my son, even I've taught my son how to carry his sisters. Both of the boys, actually, my boys, I taught them how to carry the girls when they were young. I would tell them, pick them up, you put your arm, let them rest on your arm, and you keep them in front of you when you carrying them, versus straddling their legs and one leg on the back. Y'all know what I'm saying. So certain things we didn't do that. And when you hug, when you hug on men, the men hug you, you side hug them. Don't put your chest all on them. Little things like that, that you have to train your daughters so that you can see the signs. Okay, so we have another statement. Well, not actually, but if a child refused to go around certain people, that's a good one too, Xavier. Or walk away when a certain name pops up, I would tune in, pick up, pick or place at them because I sense an anxiety in them. That is good, Xavier. That is another good one. When your child can't stand to be around somebody, and like Xavier said, we start talking about this person name and they get up and walk away. That is good. I agree with that. That is a good sign that something is going on with your child. That is good. Yeah. What it was a movie with what is his name? Mel Gibson, when his son was kidnapped. And what saved at the end of the movie, what saved his son, that, well, what told dad that this was the man who kidnapped me and hurt me is when the little boy heard the man that had kidnapped him voice, he froze and he wet himself. And so when dad looked over and saw his son peeing on himself, he knew instantly this something wasn't right about this man, because my son reacts, this anxiety, this fear came across his son. So that is very, very good. So a question about uh the flags and everything. Why do you think we as people, why do people remain in toxic relationships? I'm trying to look at the that's good. That's a good question. So we have a question. We often teach our girls. We'll go back to the remaining in toxic relationships question. We'll go back to that one. But the statement is, we often teach our girls what to do with men. What other advice can you offer about teaching men? Okay, so what do I teach my boys about it? I'm gonna tell you. This is what um, I told my sons about women, because boys look at things differently. Female touch them, they get all, but that's teenage years. But as a little boy, I would tell my son, to that again, just be cautious of the touches. I taught all four of my kids about the touches and how, what's wrong with boys. I think it's a little different. You have to teach them, you have to specifically tell them, the areas that's wrong to touch. But that is a good question, Sabrina, because that is a really good question. I think that is a really good question. I think I'm a little stuck on that one because my son, he talked a lot anyway, so he told everything that he experienced. You know how you ask your kids, so what you do today and how you do it, and my baby would just go off and they would just tell me everything that happened. But I guess you would definitely have to teach them the signs on what's appropriate for a woman to touch. Don't touch the private parts, and show them the type of, what don't nobody touch. I remember teaching my son, shouldn't nobody ever touch you right here but mommy, daddy, grandma, and that's only to clean you. If it's not to clean you, then you got to tell mommy and show mommy exactly how or what they did and that made you uncomfortable. But I can remember I would talk my son that it was around the age 6 or 7, because they at school and they still learning how to wipe themselves clean, at that early age and everything. So that's a good question. So Mark, hello, has let's see what that statement is. I was living in Sacramento and I lived in a apartment there. I moved to another apartment complex and I went back to visit someone that at that apartment and noticed a little girl had to be about 4 years laying down on her stomach, rubbing herself on the bench. I knew something was wrong. Well, did you turn that? Did you report it? I'm curious to know. Thank you all for your patience. I'm reading comments. So Mark was saying that he noticed a little girl that was laying down, rubbing herself on her stomach. I knew something was wrong. So Mark, I'm curious, did you turn that person, did you speak about it? Did you question it? Did you talk to the parent, or did you go to the authorities? I'm just curious to know that. Oh, okay. He said he really didn't know what to do at that time. I got you. So, in today's time, um, currently I have a person in my life that often runs into situations, and I'm constantly, me personally, if I was invited into the situation, I would definitely say something. But sometimes when I'm sitting back and I'm listening to somebody else vent about a situation, all I can do, I try. I say, you need to say something. You need to call. I'm telling you now, anonymously works. Even if you call anonymously, call the police station, call 311, do a well-being check. Hey, I was at this particular place, I was at this address, and I was visiting a friend or whatever, and I noticed something. I feel like a wellness check needs to be completed, and I would like to remain anonymous, and that will give you, I feel like it will give you some kind of peace of mind. I think it's better than doing absolutely nothing. Seeing something and not doing nothing makes you just as guilty as the person that's committing the crime, because here it is, you don't say nothing. You constantly, we try to talk, like, let's just say an abusive relationship. If you know somebody being abused and then that person end up killing that person that you know being abused, how is that going to make you feel when all you had to do was make a phone call and say, hey, I noticed this person is being abused, she needs help, can you do a well-being check or whatever? And honestly, the best time, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I would say the best time to call is when you know that person is being abused right in that moment. So, like, most of the times, if somebody is confiding in you and they telling you, oh my God, oh, he come in, he's drunk, or, oh, I'm about to deal with this, I'll call you right back. Call the police. Hey, my friend lives at such and such, such and such. I know that she's being abused, but I'm hoping that somebody can go by there and help out. Right. So I don't know. What are you guys, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, personally, that's what I would do. You can't force anybody to do anything, but I just believe in my heart, I would feel really bad if I know somebody is being hurt and abused and I say nothing or bring it to at least somebody else's attention who is closer to the situation that could possibly help or make that decision. So back to that last question. Why do we sometimes, why do you think it is that we remain in toxic relationship? Not even necessarily physically abuse, but the verbally abusive relationships. And those sometimes are just as bad as a physical abuse, because when you are constantly being told or spoke to negatively, you ain't gonna do this, you ain't this, that old, you ain't, how people say that, or you ain't nothing good about you. They just degrade you and talk about you and just make you feel self-worthless of your own self. And then what happens then? We fall into depression. And then after depression, we become suicidal. And I just literally experienced something where somebody said to me that they thought, no, that their friend told them that they were having suicidal thoughts. And I, as a mom, a sister, a brother, felt it was my duty to just reach out to one of that person's family members, just say, hey, it was said that such and such is suicidal, having suicidal thoughts. I just wanted to make you aware so maybe you can get that person some help. And see, that's how, Lanasia, I cannot just sit back and hear something like that and not do or say something. If you see something, say something. And that the saying. So I want to thank you all so much for joining me on this Transparency Tuesday conversation. I apologize for the technical difficulties we experienced at the beginning of the conversation, but I want to thank you all so much for coming back and joining me. And please, please follow me and subscribe to my YouTube and follow me on Instagram. It's just Lanasia Tyson. And on Facebook, it's Lanasia Tyson Music. But I try to do these transparent conversations every other Tuesday. And I love being transparent. It's something, it's refreshing for me because in my life I experienced so much, and it's my heart's desire that if I can potentially help somebody not go through the things that I experienced in my life, I feel obligated to help and to say something. So again, thank you all so much. Oh, we got one more. You said they can be just as bad or worse. Physical abuse, bruises heal. Mental, emotional bruises cut deeper in the flesh and can take years to heal. Absolutely, Crystal. Absolutely. It is just as bad. I totally agree, because there is nothing. I know people to this day that their confidence is so shot because people have just degraded them verbally and abused them verbally to the point where they feel like they don't even have a reason to live. Like they don't even, in their minds, they're not even capable of pulling themselves out of it. They believe nothing but all of that negative things that was said to them. It's like embedded in their heart, and it comes out in their actions, in their vocabulary. They just begin to speak all negative. It can crush you. And I know people that has yet to heal from that, has yet to heal. That's why it's imperative, it's important to uh, talk to somebody, seek counseling. Counseling and therapy is good for us. It's good to be able to talk it out and to be able to have somebody you can even ask questions, because 9 times out of 10, the reason why we're scared to talk about it is because we feel like we're embarrassed, or we feel like we're the only ones that's going through it. Nobody will ever understand what I'm feeling or what I'm going through or what I'm experiencing. Or people make light of what my situation is. You ever heard somebody say, "Oh man, it ain't that bad"? You just be like, "Are you kidding me? You have no clue what I have to do to go through." So I got to read some of these comments. I think if there is a situation before me, I would speak out and let them know of the consequences. But if it persists, I would not leave without helping. But if that person returns to that, I would not go around these type of people knowing all could be harmed. I I'm glad to hear that, Xavier. I'm really glad to hear that. So it's tough, but again, that's part of that tough love. Tough love. I love you enough to tell you the truth. I love you so much. I love you enough to help try to save your life to the best of my abilities, even if it means you may even hate me or be mad at me. Because sometimes they say that saying that we have to be careful, um, because the messenger is the one that gets shot. You ever hear no, you go tell that person that his girlfriend cheating on him, and then you go and tell that person, girl, your boyfriend is cheating on you. You just jealous. You don't know. They turn it around, like they just don't want to believe it could ever happen to them, or they so in love they don't see the signs. And I believe in my heart, but that's when a simple conversation, bringing things to the light, just talk about it. Hey, so I noticed such and such is really friendly with that person. Do you know this person, or are they relatives? Just start bringing things to their life so they can see for themselves. Because if you try to just flat out tell people, sometimes they can push away. So again, thank you all so much for joining me in this conversation. Please follow me. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. You don't want to miss. I have some amazing things coming up, as you all already know. Um, I am 80% complete with my new album. Yay! So I'm really excited about that. We'll have a sneak peek soon. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties, and I will see you all on week after next. Remember, it is always my heart's desire to uplift, motivate, and encourage everyone I come in contact with. I love you all, and you all be blessed and safe and stay safe. Love you all.